Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Daisy Kolita, Assistant Professor from the Department of Computer Science and Electronics. Today here, I am going to introduce before you the introduction to the object-oriented programming. So, object-oriented programming is the one of the method for the programming where we can create and organize the software design around the data. So, and data means we can create the data or we can take the real life data. As for example, students, books, like that one, we can design the software on the basis of this data. And when we use the object-oriented programming, at that time we have to create the object rather than the function and the logic. So already you know the different kind of logic in the C programming, and already you use the function in the C programming. So when we have to describe the object-oriented programming, at that time for this structure, object-oriented programming structure, we have to concentrate on the object rather than the logic and the function. So in the case of object-oriented programming, data are defined as the field, which are already defined as the field. In the case of object-oriented programming, we can define as the attribute, and its behavior is effective in the object-oriented programming. When we describe the data related to the book, then book is describe one entity, and the behavior of the book object described in the case of logic. And the operation related to the books, like we can in the case of library, books in the library, we can issue the book, then return the book. These are the operations related to the books. So these are described, we can describe these things or this operations as the function in the object-oriented programming. Always object-oriented programming focuses on the object that developer want to manipulate rather than the logic. So when we create one object, at that time the manipulation of the object are done, but not the logical function. So under the under the manipulating the method, then this method is depends on the logic. So make the object-oriented programming with the help of well-suited program, and that one may be complex, but with the help of programming logic, we can make the easier representation of the complex problem. Here I represent some example of the object-oriented programming. One of the basic example of the object-oriented programming is the C++. Another one is the Java, Python, Visual Basic .NET, Ruby, and the PHP. And basically we use in the initial programming language, always we use the C++. So C++ is the one of the basic object-oriented programming, which is the extension of the C program. So C program is the one procedural language, but C++ is the object-oriented programming. Normally we say that the C++ is the extension of C programming. So on the basis of the logic of the C programming, we can define the same logic in the structure of the object-oriented programming in C++ programming. Like the C++ programming, we can get another one object-oriented programming language, that one is the Java. And with the help of Java, there are two different portions of the Java. One is the core Java and another one is the advanced Java. So in the Java, we can describe the entity of the real world, and these entities are based on the attributes, means these are the fields of the particular field related to that particular object. So that one is the called as the attribute, and along with the attribute and the entity representation, we can describe in the Java that some database concept also. So like the C++ and Java, we can define the Python also, VB.NET, Ruby and PHP. And in these 4 different subjects, we can create the API, different kind of, using this object-oriented programming language, we can define the different type of API. We can create different type of API with the help of this object-oriented programming, from where we can extract the data from the database. So here I represent some common terms used in the object-oriented programming. So basically, object-oriented programming depends on the object and the method. But here we use some other terms like encapsulation, messages and receivers, polymorphism and the overloading, members, class members and instance members, and the inheritance. So in the case of object-oriented programming, every method or everything we can define as the object. To define the different property of the object, we can use the method. Then another one term is used as the encapsulation. So encapsulation means it encapsulates the data related to the entity, and it gives the another one property, that one is called as the data hidden or the data hiding. So if we encapsulate the data using the object-oriented programming concept, then data inside the bounded region, then that one is the hidden from the outsider. Next is the message passing. Message passing is a method in the object-oriented programming. That one is the passes the information from the one portion of the programming to the another one portion of the programming. So that one, in that case, we get the message and the receiver. Next one is the polymorphism and the overloading. Polymorphism means more than one form we can define in the object-oriented programming, and with the help of inside the polymorphism, we can get the overloading also. Next one is the members. In the case of entity, everything we can define as the define with the help of members, and normally we get the 2 different kind of members. One is the data member and another one is the member function. So the attribute related to the one entity, these are called as the data member, and the operation related to the member, these are called as the member functions. Next one is the classes. So every entity we can define as the classes. That one is the concept of the class used in the object-oriented programming. Already I think you know about the structure concept of the C programming. So class is a same type structure like the structure in the structure tools in the C programming. But here some difference we get, like the private concept is not introduced in the C programming, but we get the private and the public member of the class. Then another one concept we get, that one is the class member and the instance member. So class member and the class members, the data member which are define the entity, and member functions which define the operations related to the attribute of the entity. These are called as the class member. And instance member means when we create the object of the class, or when we instantiated the class, then we get some member within the object, and that one is called as the instance member. And next term used in the case of object-oriented programming, that one is the inheritance. So inheritance means we can reuse the statement of one programming with the help of inheritance property. So these are the basic terms used in the case of object-oriented programming. Then now we get the different structure or different properties used in the object-oriented programming. That one is the first one is the class. So what is class? Class is used in C++ programming and basically called as a building block of the object-oriented programming. So when we have to define anything in the object-oriented programming, then it is described as the class, and it's define the own data member as well as the member functions. So the one entity, when we have to describe one entity, then declare the class on the basis of that entity, and the field related to that entity is defined as the data member, and the operation related to that entity is called as the member function in the concept of the object-oriented programming. So data members are the variable with the help of which we can define the define the different attribute of the object or the entity, real world entity. Then these are the data members, where we can define the data member along with the data types. So the variables related to the entity, but always the variable related to the one data type. So when we have to declare the data member of the class, then declare the always mention about the data type of the variable also. And some operations related to this property or this data member, this operations we have to define as the member function within the class. So here I represent one example of the class. So we can declare the one real world entity cars, that one defined as the class in the object-oriented programming language, and here we get the different name or different brand for the car. So as a whole, the name of the class we can define as the car, and common properties like the number of wheels, speed limit, mileage, then chassis number, everything defined as the common property of the cars. So here these things we can describe as the data member of that particular class cars. And we can count the speed limit or the number of wheels, because cars have the different number of wheels. Maybe we get the, as for example, we get the 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, or the 4-wheeler, like that one, or the 10-wheelers. These things are described as the vehicle. Okay, so number of wheel is represent, we can count the number of wheels in the case of car. So that one is the one of the operation related to the car. And for the every car have different speed limit and different mileage. Every car gives the different mileage. So related to that one, we can describe some operations, and these operations are described as the member function of the car. So here we get the data members as the number of wheel, speed limit, and the mileage range. These are the data member which represent the property of the car, and some member functions or member methods which are calculate the number of wheels, speed limits, and the mileage of the particular car. So this methods we can represent as a member method or the member function of the class. Next one is the object, because in the case of object oriented programming, basic thing is the class and object both must be present in the object oriented programming concept. So object is an instance of the class. So every property of the described class can be accessed or can get by the one object. So when we define one class, at that time no memory allocation is done, but when we create the object or when we instantiate the class, at that time memory is allocated for that particular object. So for a car, if I say previous example, so in the case of previous example, there have one class defined as the car, and we can create the one object that maybe that one is the two-wheeler is the one type of the car. So we can create one object for the two-wheeler cars. Then suppose we can create another one object for when we have to represent the record of the Honda City car. Then we can create another one object, and specifically when the class is created, just at that time just we write the coding for the programming, but it not occupy the memory space. But when we create the object or when we instantiate the object, then we have to specify one car or specify one entity, and for that reason it allocate the memory space for that particular instance. Next one is the principles of the object-oriented programming. Because we have to use the object-oriented programming, but before that one we have to know about the principles. On the basis of what principle we use the object-oriented programming. So first principle of the object-oriented programming is the encapsulation. So it implements the state of every object as the private key. Means some books I have, if I consider I have some books, and this books is always for mine. Okay, but we can give the property, we can give the book to any other person, but always this book says, if I buy one book, then always that book goes for in the my name. So that one is the one privately assigned book for me. So like that one, in the case of object-oriented programming, some properties are privately assigned for the one class. Like this one, say if we added if we consider the previous example of the car, then every car have a specific property, and the property of the car is not related to any other real world entity. Means we can say as the property of the car and property of the book. If I say another one example book, then book and car don't have the same property. Okay, that's why we have to privately define the property of the car, and separately in another one programming or in another one structure we can define the property of the book, but both are not related to each other. So when we have to define the property of the one entity privately, then we can use the property of the object-oriented programming. That one is called as the encapsulation. So encapsulation give the one bounded region, so where we can define the property of the one object or one a real world entity, and we can have the authority to make the changes in the property. Means like this one, anyone can define the property like the car property, like the chassis number, number of wheel, then seating capacity, then mileage. According to these things we can describe by the one person. But another one person described the same car class with the help of chassis number, then seating capacity, then chassis number, then capacity of the engine. So these things are many things described by the another one person. So when both the person define the car class with different property, then both are represented in the different way. Okay. And another one example we can say, in the case of book is the real world entity, but if the book have within one bookshop, at that time we cannot describe the property that like issue date, return date, these things we cannot describe. But if that book is come to the library, then basic things are always same: name of the book, author name, author name, then publisher name, number of pages. These things are always related to the book. And another one is the price. These things are always related to the book, but number of issue or the issue date, return date, these things are not related to book when book is available within the shop. So we can describe the two different book classes in the case of one, in the case of bookshop, and in another one we can describe the book within the library. So encapsulation is a property which is make a bounded region where we have to describe all the property of the particular one class. And when we describe the encapsulation, at that time we get the another one features. That one is the data hiding from the other class also. Means if we define the bookstall book, then that one is completely separate from the library book. Next one is the abstraction. So abstraction means that one is the how can we create one object related to the another one object. So already we get some property, basic property of the C++ programming, and this C++ programming have this one. In this programming we get some basic data types. On this basic data type we can create the another one data type also. So that one is considered as the abstraction. So on the basis of existing data or existing object, if we create a new object, then that property is considered as the abstraction. So next one is the inheritance. So we get the one features of the object oriented programming, that one is the rewriting. So without changing the coding, we can execute the already existing coding in another one class. Because normally what happens, if we define one class, then classes are separate from each other. So when we have to create the relation between the classes, then we can use the concept of the inheritance. And with the help of inheritance, we get the concept of the subclass and the superclass. And the relation always subclass is the based on the superclass. Or we can describe as a new class, describe as a child class instead, and already existing classes is defined as the parent class. So relation between the parent class and the child class or the subclass and the superclass, these things are defined with the help of inheritance. So the property of the parent class or the superclass we can access through the subclass or the child class. With the in this property, in this features, we get one advantage is that one is the we have not to rewrite the existing code. Without rewriting the existing code, we get the high level accuracy. So another one features of the object-oriented programming, that one is the polymorphism. So polymorphism means when we have to use the same property or the same method for more than one purpose, then it is considered as the polymorphism. So in the case of inheritance, more than one classes we get, and where we can use the same method. But when we use the same method name in the base class and the derived class, at that time method name same means the only one method is considered. So if we use the same method name for the different purpose, then we can get as the polymorphism. So meaning of the polymorphism is actually maniform. So maniform means we can use the same method or the same properties for different tasks. So that one is the polymorphism. Next one is the message passing. So through the object we can communicate with each other. From the one object we can communicate or pass the message to the another one object. So that one comes under the message passing property of the object oriented programming. And when one message uses the object to request the execution for the procedure, particular one procedure, then that one is considered as the message sender, and who received the information about the sender from the sender, then that one is considered as the receiver object. And this concept is used to get the appropriate result with the more accuracy. So in the case of message passing, always we have to specify the name of the receiver and the message sender name also. So message sender means this one is normally we consider as the host object or the host, and receiver is considered as the guest. Means we initiate the process, host is initiate the process, and receiver or the guest is receive the object. So that one is the concept of the message passing in the object oriented programming. And next one is the advantages of the object oriented programming. Due to some property like simplicity, modularity, modifiability, extensibility, maintainability, and reusability of the advantages, we use the object oriented programming. Next one is the why we select the object oriented programming. Because we get the object oriented programming with the features like polymorphism, inheritance, abstraction, encapsulation. These are the main features of the object oriented programming. And another two features we get class and object. So for these features we can select the object oriented programming, because with the help of these features, object oriented programming give the more flexibility for the user. Next one is the application of the object oriented programming, means where we can apply the object oriented programming. So when we have to create the object oriented client server structure or the client server system, then we can use the object oriented programming. Next one is the object oriented databases. So we get the normally database, we get the different database for the practical use, but when we have to access the data with the help of methods and attributes, then it is called as the object oriented database. And to create the object oriented or access the data from the object oriented database, we can apply the object oriented programming. Next one is the real-time system. So when we have to create the real-time system, or in the real time we have to access the different data or dealing with the data, then we have to use the real-time system. So that one we can create with the help of object-oriented program. Different kind of simulation or the modeling system we can create with the help of object-oriented system. Depending on the natural science or the modeling calculating the depth of the sea, or like that one different type of agricultural system we can create with the help of object-oriented programming. Next one is the application in the field of the hypertext and the hypermedia. So when we have to create the different hypertext and the hypermedia, different media we have to collapse in a one container, then that one is the one application of the object-oriented programming. The next one is the application of object-oriented programming in the neural networking and the parallel programming. So it addresses the problem for the prediction and the approximation of the complex time in the time varying system. So this type of system we can generate with the help of object-oriented programming. And to create the office automation system or to access the data from the office automation system, we can use the object-oriented programming. And in the application of the CIM, CAD, CAM, so in this type of application, we can use the object-oriented programming, where we have to access the X and Y value. And to create the different AI expert system, we can use the object-oriented programming, where we get the property or the characteristics like reliable with a high response, easily understandable, and with greater performance. So these are the application of the object-oriented programming. So this is the introduction about the object-oriented programming, and hope you will be more benefited from my this lecture. So thank you all.